Tapestry weaves together the threads of our struggles and doubts, curiosities, our faith, our joys and hopes to create meaningful conversations that matter. You know those late night conversations that go unexpectedly deep? That's what we want to capture with the Tapestry Podcast. And we want everyone to jump in the conversation. Because when we are heard and valued, we can begin to believe we are loved. Welcome to the Tapestry Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Tapestry Podcast. Today we are talking about anxiety. And I am here with two friends that I've known for a long time. I'm here with Mikayla.
Hi.
And with my friend Reb.
Hi.
And so we're going to kind of get started with, in this episode, talking about what anxiety is. And I've invited Reb on very specifically because of Reb's experience in her professional life. So Reb, would you talk to us a little bit about some of that experience you've had?
Sure. So I have an undergraduate degree in psychology and a master's degree in counseling. And I worked actually, straight out of college, I worked with homeless youth on the streets of Denver for 15 years and went back and got my master's a little bit later. Originally not really intending to become a therapist, really just I wanted more tools in my toolbox for helping young people on the streets who are navigating mental health issues. Turned out I did really like doing actual therapy. So that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years. Yeah, working as a therapist.
Yeah. Excellent. So she got some street cred in more than one way. And I learned so much from you early on. And we've talked about this before, Reb, about street youth, what it means for a lot of people, not just youth, to live on the street, and some of the struggles and some of the things that have gotten them there, which are often no fault of their own. So I've always valued your insights on things. So I'm really glad you're here on the podcast.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So I guess why don't we start with just that question? What is anxiety? And in the next episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about our own personal experiences with anxiety and what that has felt like for us. So in this one, we're going to talk a little bit more kind of 10,000 foot view. Like, what is this? Maybe a little bit of what we've experienced, and then move on from there. So does anybody want to start with that? Start on anxiety? Like, what is it? Or maybe your own definition?
I have a description of anxiety that a friend shared with me a while ago, but it feels like you're falling down the stairs, but you see more stairs as you keep falling. So you wonder when the falling is really going to be done.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that is so good. Yes.
I've never heard that.
Like, that's really good. And like, there's that like the last step, where like, is there one more stair or not? Like if you're carrying something you can't see, like, or maybe it's dark, like it's a perpetual, is this the last step almost, right? Like, ooh, that is really good. And that's our episode. So listeners, thanks for joining us.
I really like that, Mikayla. I guess when I think of anxiety, I think of the first word that comes to mind for me is worry. It's this kind of, and I think it has many different flavors in different people, or different situations. But I think about worry. I think about anxiety also as like a natural response to stress. You know what I mean? It's like a stressor appears, and whatever that might be. And anxiety is kind of a response, I think, a lot of times to stress.
Yeah. And I guess for me, I may have always kind of conflated being nervous and being anxious. I'm not sure they're exactly the same thing, but I think early on in my life, those were pretty synonymous. If I'm feeling nervous about something, maybe it was even hard to differentiate between being nervous and being excited. Maybe there's like kind of both going on in me. But I think as I've grown, I've thought of I typically think of anxiety as something that's negative, right? And I don't know if that's actually true, but it tends to have a negative label that the connotation, if not the definition, is anxiety is bad. Too much of it's going to ruin your life and make your, heart all bad and whatever else. And I also have an undergraduate degree in psychology and learned a little bit about it like many years ago. And I know we've learned a lot more about anxiety since I was in college. And I did learn some more in seminary as well. But like what's going on in our brains, and like in our lizard brain, our like amygdala, right? And what's going on in the rest of our physiology. And I remember learning after college, a little bit like you, Reb, I went into like the field, right? And I was working with actually children who had all sorts of different diagnoses. But one of the things I learned was that this is related to anxiety. It's not exactly the same. Had to do with attachment disorders or reactive attachment disorder. And that is something that people are diagnosed sometimes when they have a hard time forming secure attachments with their caretakers or adults in their life. And the experience of loss and the anticipation of loss provoke the same physiological reaction in a person. And I think that for me also is connected to the anxiety, right? Like, so like feeling like, oh no, like this thing might happen can actually create the same physiological response in your body that actually experiencing the thing that you're worried about can do. And so it has to do with, like the way you're thinking and the story you're telling yourself, but also like all of those fight or flight or freeze things going on in your brain and stuff like that. So, man, anxiety is rough and it can be brought on by all sorts of things.
That makes me think of kind of a different angle a little bit on anxiety, which is if you think about like an animal, right? If you think about like a deer in the woods who's about to get attacked, right? And the deer probably is not sitting there munching on grass thinking like, oh my gosh, I wonder if I'm about to get attacked, but it might sense a predator and then it has a reaction, right? And it generally will have like one of those like fight, flight, freeze, fawn, like fall over dead act,
Yeah.
But then what happens is whatever happens with the predator happens. And if the animal survives it, the animal just gets up and starts eating again. Do you know what I mean? Like that animal does not, to my knowledge, that animal does not avoid that pasture from then on, or like, that animal does not exist in a state of what we might call like anxiety. But I do think humans are a little different that way. Like with what you were saying, it's like the like you could have a physiological response to just a thought as opposed to like an actual occurrence. And that does make me think of like what a lot of people are experiencing as anxiety.
Right. And we can end up like dwelling on it, right?
Oh,
so thinking back to like, man, that coyote came out of nowhere, didn't it? Jeez, they were so fast. I don't think coyotes go after deer. Actually, I'm quite certain they don't. But, fill in the blank, wolf, maybe mountain wolf. Lion. Yeah.
Pack of wolves.
Yeah.
Grizzly bear. I don't know.
Pack of wolves. Yeah. Grizzly bear. Yeah. And I've seen this for sure in the people that I work with and I don't want to say clinical settings because you've had much more experience in clinical settings, Reb. But like it's a real thing. And sometimes I think it gets dismissed as like, oh, well, that's just anxiety. You're just feeling anxious. It's like, yeah, but that like for you, that's real, right?
Right. Well, I was even going to say, I think you just said something to the effect of like, we can, in our minds, kind of let it grow and let it fester. And I do think that can be an aspect of anxiety. I also think that for whatever reason, whether it's a genetic predisposition or past traumatic experiences, whatever that might be, that some people, it's almost like they're on an anxiety roller coaster and they're just trying to hold on for dear life. Do you know what I mean? Like for some people, yes, I think our minds can kind of take us there. And then I think other people in some ways might be like subject to this, maybe people who are more predisposed for whatever reason it's like, it's not even that they let themselves dwell on it. It's just that anxiety as a mental health disorder has a hold on them and is taking them down those stairs, not knowing what's coming.
As someone who has it, it does kind of pull me or drag me down the stairs sometimes, and through
Right.
like that same spiral of thoughts of, oh, well, if this happens, then this is going to happen. But then what if this happens? And what if that happens? Like, I call it the what if game. I've made a lot of nicknames for my anxiety in order to sort of get more comfortable with her. But I have created the what if game. And that's the game that my brain likes to play. Like, what if this bad thing happens? What if that bad thing happens?
My mom is a licensed professional counselor, now retired, and she called that catastrophizing. That we kind of like imagine that everything's going to be a catastrophe, or turn things that are not actually maybe that bad, or probably won't turn into something worse than they already are, into an absolute catastrophe in your mind.
Right. Which is part of why this is a unique to humans problem, because our brains are so incredible and complex that we can do all that in our brains, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Reb, I wonder if you, in your kind of practice, kind of came across any, I don't know, patterns or things that helped you kind of recognize what somebody was dealing with when it came to anxiety? Or maybe I'll let you talk. Like, what was your experience with anxiety in your practice?
My practice, yeah. Yeah, I think that, I mean, thankfully, in today's world, most people have some knowledge and understanding of mental health, right? So most people aren't coming in without any, like, baseline level of understanding. So I think people often come in and diagnose themselves, or they say words like, yeah, I'm really worried, or I get super anxious, or I feel like I can't relax. I feel like I can never stop asking these what ifs. I feel like, I'm tense all the time is probably another thing. Like people, and sometimes people come with actual physiological problems like back pain and GI issues and all kinds of things presenting largely due to anxiety. In fact, and I can talk more about this later, but I also am a person who experiences anxiety. And as a kid, I actually had like sickness, physical sickness, that my mom kept taking me to the doctor. And eventually they ran all these tests and tried to figure out what was going on with me. And eventually the doctor said, there's nothing physiologically wrong with you, but you are, you need to like look at yourself. I mean, he said it kindly, but you need to kind of look at like the stress and the anxiety in your life. And that is the only thing he could figure out was causing the physical symptoms I was having. And I've seen that in many clients as well.
Yeah. And I think that is something, like you mentioned, that our culture, our society has begun to recognize and have words for, and have like a better framework for talking about. And I think that's so helpful, right? If you have a way to name something, then in some cases it can maybe have less control over you. You're like, oh no, this is just this. This is just the what if game that my brain is playing again. And maybe then you have a way of short circuiting it or telling yourself a different story. And I think that's can be really powerful.
Definitely.
But I think there can be also a flip side to having names for things. That is, and Reb, I'm sure that you have experienced this, especially coming from undergrad background and then some, graduate work. Especially in psychology, it seems like terms enter the popular consciousness and end up like getting changed a little bit, right?
In fact, when a client comes in, sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
Oh, yeah. Well, when a client comes in and uses a word like anxiety or bipolar or, something like that, my first question is always, tell me what you mean when you say anxiety, or tell me what you mean when you say bipolar, because I want to see if because I think it's easy to make the mistake of like, oh, okay, we're on the same page. We're talking about anxiety. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, wait, we're not talking about the same thing here, like, because that is the flip side. To me, that's the little shadow. I think all in all, what has happened in our culture in the United States, especially, is like this destigmatization of mental health. And that's a beautiful thing. And I do think there's this tiny little shadow that can be, over self-diagnosing or thinking that you understand something about yourself and you may misunderstand it. And that could lead you in a negative direction,
Yeah. Mikayla, have you had any experience with that?
When you said that, I think of the way that people on social media will take words that are meant for mental health and other mental health issues and start using it in regular terms. Like, the difference between intrusive and impulsive thoughts is huge, but the amount of people online who continue to say intrusive when or the wrong word when it should be the other word, because I can't figure out which of the two anymore. But when people say those things, it's usually they mean impulsive thoughts because they're like, oh, I want to do this really silly thing because it just came to my brain and I want to do it now. But intrusive thoughts are very debilitating versus like what these little silly goofy thoughts are. It makes me crazy. Crazy.
Yeah, I do think you're right, Mikayla, that social media has really exacerbated this problem. I mean, I think social media has, let's give it a little credit, also has probably helped in the destigmatization of mental health. But yeah, I do think there's some influencers on there who are like kind of posing as experts and are using some things wrong or confusing their listeners.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of normal and natural when you take a word that was used, really is jargon in a very specific field, and then it becomes part of kind of just household terms. Like, one that I remember learning about in undergrad was like antisocial, what it means to have like antisocial personality disorder. It doesn't mean that you're feeling shy or unsocial. Like, these are people who like will shoot a shotgun at their neighbor's mailbox and be like, yeah, because why not? It's a mailbox. That's what you do. Like, that's anti-social behavior, not just feeling like, well, I don't want to go to the party tonight. I'm feeling antisocial, right? And I think that can happen a little bit with anxiety. And I don't know, I'm with you, Reb. I think this is a small shadow.
Yeah.
And for anybody who's listening, I'm certainly not dismissing your experience of anxiety. But sometimes I work with teenagers, right? And so sometimes I'll have a teenager say something like, oh man, my anxiety is just so bad right now. And I will take them at face value. But sometimes I think, is that a word you just heard and you're applying it to yourself?
Oh, trust me.
Or is this
coming into to the very same thing? Not teenagers either.
If you do feel like maybe you do have anxiety, talk to somebody. There are online resources as well that you can consult and maybe get a better bead on what's going on in you.
Well, I totally agree with that thought because I actually, TikTok and Instagram really helped me see more symptoms in myself of ADHD, which I didn't previously know were symptoms because I wasn't sure that it was really something I was experiencing, or if I was like, oh, I agree with these like couple things that you said, but it's down the line times 10 creators who have all said like pretty similar symptoms, to the point where I was like, maybe I should ask more questions about what ADHD means, what ADHD is, like how it can affect women, how it looks different in men and women, like. And that just prompted me to ask my therapist. And then she did end up eventually diagnosing me with ADHD appropriately, because I was like, hey, I think I might have this, but I don't quite know, but I have some thoughts that I want to share with you. So in that way, social media has really helped a lot of people, including me, find answers and find help for things. Because before that, I was like, there's just this thing that's off about me that's different from everybody else, but it's actually something that a lot of people have. It's just not something that's openly spoken about, unless it's sometimes on social media where people use it as like diaries almost.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think that is one of the really good things, is that we are freer to talk about it I think maybe one of the places where we feel a little less free to talk about it is in a lot of faith communities and churches. My experience, at least kind of growing up, and for listeners and viewers who don't know, just kind of give you a frame. I was born in 1979 and grew up in the 80s and 90s. And I think, at least in my experience, in the churches that I was connected to, the Christian churches, there was kind of a lot of like, well, you just need to pray more. And also like God will heal you of that. And also maybe you're worrying and God says, don't worry about things. Jesus says, the birds are taken care of by God, and the flowers are taken care of by God. So you just don't need to worry about those things. So just stop worrying. And so I'm curious for you two. You grew up in different places than I did, and in at least for Mikayla, a much different time than I did. Reb is a closer time, but maybe not quite the same time.
I won't tell you exactly here, but
I won't reveal. Yeah. What are your experiences when it comes to faith communities you've been connected to or known about, and kind of how they or we have treated anxiety?
Well, I grew up in the early 2000s and the 2010s. Wonderful time. Had a lot of fun. However, I also was raised Catholic for the first part of my life before I ended up going to the church that I'm at now, which I'm very happy to be here. But within the Catholic Church, I know that it is a lot of just, you need to pray more, give it to God, talk to God about it, repent, confess about it, all of these things, like anything that you feel bad about, like talk to your pastor during confessionals about it. Which they just go, okay, you feel bad about this, let's pray for you, and then you move on. You don't really get any sense of help. You just go, oh well, I told God and my pastor. That's at least how it felt for me, because I didn't really get any solutions, any answers, any help outside of just being told to pray more and give it to God, which I gave it all to God, and I was still sat with more. So that's where I kind of struggled within that until I was able to speak about my thoughts a little bit, because I was 10, so I didn't really have good vocabulary for that either. So
yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Mikayla. I feel like mine's pretty similar to yours, Mike. We did grow up in similar eras and also similar faith communities, but yeah, I think that sense of and this may have just been my lens, but I do feel like there was this perfection piece of, and that still sounds really funny in the context of God and spirituality to say perfection, but it was this idea of well, if you were a better Christian, then you probably wouldn't be so worried, or you wouldn't feel so nervous, or just pray more. There was this sense of you're not good enough, maybe. And maybe no one said those exact words, but that was my lens of I'm not trying hard enough, or I'm not I must not be a good enough Christian if I'm still feeling worried, even though I know God's in control and I know that God takes care of the flowers and all this stuff. That I still couldn't quite kick it, kind of like Mikayla.
Yeah. I'd be really curious. I have some Jewish friends and at least one good Muslim friend, and I'd be really curious to hear from them. And I should probably reach out. That would have been really good to reach out before this podcast, I guess. But friends, if you come from another faith tradition, we'd love to hear about kind of how your experience has been around anxiety. My friends who are Buddhist seem to have a much more, thoughtful approach to this. That is kind of something that that's part of being human, and it's something you can also let go of. I wonder for our Muslim friends and our Jewish friends and friends of other faiths might approach it. I know that that whole well, you just pray it away. And what you said, Reb, about faith, maybe not enough faith, totally reminded me of there is a particular branch or kind of stream of Christianity that is sometimes called prosperity gospel or health and wealth gospel. And for those unfamiliar, it's kind of the idea that if you have enough faith or the right kind of faith or something, and you kind of practice that faith in the right way, then God will bless you with good physical health, I presume good mental health, and then good finances. Like you'll have all the money you need, right? And to be clear, there's some biblical backup for this, right? That like there are things in the Bible that say like, you know, if you test God in this way, then God will bless you in this way. I think the shadow side of this is, well, number one, usually the demonstration of faith that is required in these settings is giving money to the church or the pastor, which seems like maybe a little suspect, right, to begin with. And then the evidence maybe that you don't have enough faith actually turns out to be that, well, you ended up with cancer. So clearly you didn't have enough faith. It's like, oh. And so I think there are some faith traditions, especially those around prosperity gospel and kind of that health and wealth stuff, that deal with mental health in this way too. So like if you're anxious, if you're depressed, if you have, you know, these different things, well, it's really just because you didn't have enough faith. And, oh, friends, if you are listening and that has been you, I am so sorry. And I believe that that is untrue, that is a lie, that that is not what God would say about you. And also that you are more than your anxiety and you can overcome it. That, and that I believe that God can help with that, which we will, I think, talk about in an upcoming episode soon. But the people that I've seen struggle through some of these kinds of issues because of that teaching or that kind of teaching, it breaks my heart. So if that's you, listener, that is not the only way to look at this. There are people of faith, people who follow Jesus, who have another way of looking at it. And I think the three of us are among them. So
I would actually have to say that because I grew up with you to an extent, you know, within youth group and stuff like that, youth group actually opened up a completely different channel for me to talk about it in a positive way with other people who had shared similar experiences. I always think about like the nights that you gave us, like those open-ended question nights where you could write down any question that you had on a piece of paper and give it to you and you would help answer that, and like different lessons throughout the day. Like if there was a lot of questions about certain things and you would answer all of them, which gave everybody no fear in asking more and more questions, which it opened up a channel of communication between us, which made my anxiety about approaching you with like things that made me anxious, things I didn't really understand about myself, a lot easier to do. And especially like when I had hard experiences happen and I didn't really know where to take that, I had an outlet for my anxiety now because you had shown us through faith and through very little actions over time that you are someone who is very greatly to be trusted. For me, at least. So that helped a lot with me changing my perspective on faith and how faith can help my mental health too, which is through having those groups and those discussions with other people to be able to open up that line better.
Beautiful.
Wow. I don't know exactly how to respond, but that might be a really great place to wrap up this episode. Yeah, folks, there are places, and thank you for your kind words. There are people, lots of people who will sit with your questions out there, friends, who will sit with you in your anxiety, who will really care for you. And that is actually one of the values of our ministry, is that there's no question that's off limits, that you can ask anything. And I don't know if I always had an answer, Mikayla, but I had a response at least. Right. So, no, I could, yeah.
You showed you cared. That was what mattered to us, was that you showed you cared.
Cool. Yeah, I'm glad. Well, thank you. And yeah, I think that's a great place to wrap up here. So thanks for coming along, listeners, viewers. And in the next episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about kind of the personal experience of anxiety, what that has felt like for us. and some more. So come with us as we continue talking about anxiety. Thanks for being here on this one. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
The Tapestry Podcast is produced by Stephen Bailey. Original music was scored by Taylor Martin. Special thanks to Lauren Richmond Jr. and Resonate Media. You can learn more about Tapestry and join the conversation on our Discord channel at tapestrytalk.org. Thanks for joining us.